We will get started in just a moment. I'm just going to wait for a couple more seconds before I get started. I hope everybody's having a good day today. You're welcome. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to Zycel's Tech Talk. My name is Tri Nguyen. I am the product manager, sales manager here at Zycel North America, and glad to have you here and be able to talk about security things. And this is going to be a little bit different format than usual. Hopefully, I'm trying something a little bit different, kind of new. With me not only just being in the picture here, but also um, I want this to be interactive. And so, if you would like to speak and ask questions, you can always raise your hand, or you can use the Q&A if you want to speak. If you have a mic and you want to have a live question asked to me, you can do so via. I'll click on the button that lets you talk so that you can ask the question. You can introduce yourself and then ask the question, and I'll try to answer those questions as well. But I wanted it to be more of a conversation. I know we've done a lot of presentations that are related to security, about products, and about different things. But I want to get your feedback. I want to get your interaction during this time so that we could really have a conversation about what is bothering you or what questions do you have related to security. I do have lots of different slides that I can jump to if that is where the conversation goes. Uh, I just also wanted to promote we are releasing a podcast that is coming out fairly soon. You should be able to see that, where I'm talking to our systems engineer about securing the remote workplace, and that's a really good conversation for you to listen in on. It's a video podcast that you can listen to or watch that will be popping up on all the different podcast formats that you can download there. So it's going to be called Channel Chat on that podcast. So take a look at that in your favorite podcast distribution side. But today we're going to talk about security. And so again, if you want to ask some questions, if you don't want to talk, you can use the Q&A section at any time. Let's bring up a different questions, topics, ideas, thoughts, products, questions on how to whatever you want to do. From an MSP perspective, from a partner perspective, even from technology. Maybe you do have some thoughts or ideas on how to deal with best practices or cybersecurity insurance or things like that. So let's have a conversation, and hopefully that spurs some thoughts and things like that. And again, if you want to ask the question live, you can raise your hand and I'll push the allow to talk. So you can introduce yourself and ask that question. But I'm gonna do a quick introduction of who we are right now, since we, kind of get maybe to stir the pot, stir the ideas and thoughts on these different topics related to security. But as an introduction to who we are, Zycel Networks has been around for 35 plus years, over 100 million devices making connections worldwide today, 700 employees worldwide, serving 150 global markets. Over a million businesses use Zycel solutions today. And we are a channel friendly vendor. We work with you, work with partners as yourself in all aspects of the business. So pre-sales, post-sales, working with distribution. You have an account manager that will help you along the way, whatever you need, from pricing at distribution, checking stock, all the way to support, systems engineering for pre-sales and getting the right solution into the system that you're trying to build for your customers. From a general perspective, everything for us kind of revolves around Nebula. And that's what we've seen with partners, whether you're dealing with access points, security, or switching networks, the entire infrastructure kind of revolves around this management solution that we offer called Nebula. It allows for you to set up devices and solutions without even unboxing the product. So just imagine you being able to provide security networks to a customer. You can pre-install, pre-configure, pre-set up templates for those different applications and then be able to provide that to your customers seamlessly and manage it under a single pane of glass. So all you need is the MAC address serial number combination of those devices, be able to add it into your account. And once those devices are uh, online, when they call home, it basically allows for them to find out who it belongs to. And so you can use the app in order to onboard a lot of these devices and be able to manage them, be able to configure a lot of the functionalities, or you can use the web GUI interface because wherever you have internet connectivity, you have access to manage these different customers, complex scenarios, or if you need to add VPN tunneling, or maybe change security policies. Maybe your customers needing content filtering, all sorts of things that can provide those security services for you, or even as a guest network, you might have somebody who comes to the office or maybe has a business that now requires or needs a guest network SSID and be able to make sure that all of that is secure, isolated from the private network, and then be able to provide all those services to that customer. And then be able to turn it on and off, or maybe even to schedule it. We have some customers who can do that as well. So anytime, anywhere. And the whole solution is built for MSPs with MSPs in mind, built and designed in a way that gives you all the tools you need to manage it from the beginning all the way to supporting that customer and troubleshooting if something comes awry. So the MSP, the team organization, kind of the device management is built in a way that lets you uh, provide these kind of security services to your customers in a hassle-free environment. Cloud backup, cloud implementation, being able to change configurations and push in the cloud, or having these backups or templates that you can push to other sites or other customers. Be able to clone these devices like switches and APs and such, so that it makes it easier for you to deploy. And then managing these templates in a very quick and easy way. It's scalable. So whether you're using this for a single customer or for multiple different customers with maybe multiple sites, this can scale from, 5 locations to thousands of locations with tens of thousands of devices if you needed to. So it can really scale to your business. Some IT managers may just use this for just their business. And so you can offer this type of service to a customer. If you don't want to manage it, you can provide that management platform to the customer and they can do it themselves if you like. But I think where the real money and expertise and the revenue opportunity for partners is to have this platform that you can utilize to offer advanced services, especially security. And I think security is one of those complex um, things that maybe the average person or the average business doesn't understand. They just know they need some sort of security, but they need experts like yourself to be able to provide the level of security that should be, I think, a requirement for all businesses to have in order to protect themselves from all sorts of threats that are out there. And we could talk about all the different threats and maybe get some feedback from you. But just to let some of the new people who've just joined, um, this is going to be an interactive chat room, I hope. A lot of times, partners like yourselves don't get a chance to actually ask questions. We kind of feed you information, but I would love to know, things that are going on from a security aspect, topics or concerns or ideas and thoughts about security in relation to security. So if you feel comfortable with it and you want to talk via mic and have a conversation about it, you can raise your hand and I will, find a time to ask or to unmute you so that you can ask the question to me live. And then we'll have a conversation about that. And maybe that might steer the conversation in a certain direction. Or if you're not comfortable with speaking through a mic, then you can also just ask the question in the Q&A section of this webinar, and I will also answer those as well. But again, please provide me some thoughts and things like that, so I can expound upon these different aspects related to security. But Nebula is that platform. It gives you the ability to do automatic patching, updates, making sure that your security stance or the device's security is up to date in terms of any of the security features. But then more importantly too is the APs and the switches are also up to date to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities or feature functions that are missing that should be enabled for you to have a better secure network and be able to do this automatically. You could schedule it so that it can just do it during off peak hours. And so that you can monitor it, or you can just set it for ignore and allow for you to do it when you're ready. So we have partners that go across the board, whether they're doing it automatically or they will schedule it just to have more control. But it's up to you. Most of, I would say, majority of what is in Nebula today is set for auto. Um, so that it can just do it when it can. You can set the time frame when to do it. But making sure that it is up to date is very important. You'd be surprised on how many network devices that are out there from a security standpoint that have very old firmware. I'm not just speaking about, Zycel products, but other products that are out there, other vendors. They probably have never been updated since they probably don't have maybe an automated update system like we have within this cloud platform. So make sure that that's something that in your minds is part of that service, part of that offering, to make sure that things are up to date, et cetera. And then being able to make and secure remote workplaces. And this is what that podcast was talking about as well. How to use VPN, how to enable different types of security, different types of security, maybe tripping points and things like that that you might run into. And we don't want you to stumble upon those kind of situations, or make sure that you enable those kinds of functionalities to further protect those users who are remote, especially in that hybrid workplace. But with VPN encryption, that is one aspect of security that I think once the everybody was working more in that hybrid mode, it was a bigger concern. Now there's a lot more of that endpoint security, making sure that the devices are just being tunneled into the cloud so that it can be secured that way. It's really uh, it's really kind of evolving and changing as things are being pushed into the cloud. It becomes a little bit less necessary for you to build a VPN tunnel to your office anymore, for file shares, because now the file shares are all on the cloud somewhere, or the CRM tools or your business tools or even your POS systems are all within the cloud. So it does change some things, but there can be aspects where the devices like the firewall can still enable a VPN tunnel to that cloud system to make sure that that is secure, so that it's not just dependent upon the endpoint devices, but any endpoint device that's inside that network accessing those resources would be as secure as possible for basic on the profiles that the IT manager requires, the business requires, or you as an MSP requires for those customers. But all of that we can do within our products, and also our products are AI driven from a security perspective, so that it evolves constantly, so you don't have to worry about that. We're working with some of the best integrators and vendors that provide these types of security services to give you ransomware blocking, protection, malware, content filtering, all of those types of things that you need within a security appliance in order to provide those security services to your customers. Uh, so that helps to engage or to develop and evolve when new threats come about, and those get integrated into our system automatically. So that is something that's a constant battle. There's going to be always threats that are changing and there, but that's where you can find some rest and peace in that there is a system that is constantly doing battle for you and your customers. And in the Nebula platform, we support over 130 different devices right now, ranging from all the switches, the APs, even cellular type devices and routers, et cetera, within that Nebula Cloud platform. So really a single place for you to do all of your SMB, small enterprise type applications within this platform. So I still don't see any questions yet, but if you guys, again, have any thoughts and questions related to security, please send me those so that it's not just just a presentation, right? That's what I was hoping for. I think as I'm going to do, these more in this kind of format, I think a lot of the people who join and the followers who want to come to watch and to participate in this conversation, they'll they'll be more used to it. This is again the first time that I'm trying this format to make it more interactive. But we'll see. Hopefully that grows and we get more and more attendees built upon this, and we just have again general conversations rather than a pure presentation. But from a security standpoint, Zycel is a CNA, which is a CVE numbering authority. We have many of you probably are subscribed to, and I would encourage you to subscribe to Zycel's security newsletter. It's a special email address that we will send out security related issues or CVE releases or notifications from a security standpoint. So you might want to go to our marketing page, and there is an email sign up for that. If you don't know where that is, you can always contact your account manager, and we can help you find or get you that exact link that you need to get to that. But then you can subscribe and opt in to those. You do have to make sure that those emails are not sent into your spam. We have a lot of customers who've had that just over the years. It just eventually makes its way into like a spam box somewhere that they don't realize what's going on. I think Paul has a question. So hey, Paul, nice to see you. I think I
All
just
right.
Hey,
Am I live?
you are live. How are you, Paul?
I am doing wonderfully. I forgive me for having to ask, but I was a little new at this.
Yeah,
So here's the it's sort of a security related question. Recently updated some client ATPs models to the latest version of firmware.
yeah,
And don't know that it's exactly an Easter egg, but one of the pleasant things that I found in there was there's a security best practices wizard that launches on login, if I'm describing it correctly.
right, yeah,
It seems to be a nice feature and it's a good first implementation. At least if it's not the first implementation, it's the first time I've seen it.
okay,
Um, and a couple questions related to that. First off, hopefully that's going to find its way to other things. Um, I'd like to be able to launch it on demand, and I'm not seeing that in there, though maybe I just haven't looked in the right place. And I'd also like it to provide a little bit more information or granularity in some cases, because one of the flags we got at one client's was a security policy control message that says some security features are not active.
hmm
Recommend to activate them ASAP to protect your network. However, it didn't exactly say which security features it was talking about. And as I was looking over them, I said, well, there's reasons I don't have that one activated. Is that what it's complaining about, etc.?
mm,
Do you
okay.
have you played with that at all? Do you have any thoughts on that? Or is this a rabbit trail way off of where you wanted to go? And if so, that's fine. We can talk offline or something.
No worries. No, that's a good question. I mean, we do try to implement all sorts of self-help functionalities into the system. I know we had that wizard, but I know they've been always enhancing it. In the H series models, they've been implementing more of the kind of the AI aspect of it in order to help you find those things. And I think that's one area of improvement. I think that we continue to work with is to try to find uh, how when we do tell you a message like that, like to enable services, like to be more specific. And so that I'll take that with me to the R&D side on how to manage those things um, and really kind of go with that and see how we can um, I guess better implement those things into the system. I think from kind of overall uh, aspect of it is to make sure that we implement those systems into the kind of the self-help and also again tell you how best to manage those and implement those changes. I know from a log standpoint, that's also been kind of an added thing that they've started doing. And it's been our recommendation as well. So even after you've already implemented your system and you get some sort of log, let's say there is some sort of vulnerability or there is some sort of a log that says, hey, you're maybe there's an attack or some sort of CVE information there. We are in the logs. We will also then we're working with the AI side of it to pull in, what is the remediation, how to deal with those scenarios, how to deal with blocking or changing the policies or profiles to make sure that those kinds of things are going to be uh, no longer an issue. So if you do have recommendations on what kind of more information you want to have on those types of logs, please, I know you've been probably been a great like partner of ours that have, a longtime partner, have given us a lot of information and given us a lot of help to enhance and to make it beneficial for everybody when we implement these systems into our products. And so, thank you for that question. And Yeah, I mean that's kind of the conversation that I want to have is your concerns and your thoughts. But we do try to, at least from a basic level, make sure that when, especially new partners who've never used iSell before, that we do have some sort of self-help. I'll ask our engineers where there could be the kind of, like you said, the on-demand piece, because if you kind of didn't think about it in the beginning when you installed it, you might have skipped over that part of the wizard, and then how do you get back to it? I will check with that. I know there is like a wizard section, but I hadn't jumped into that one lately to see if in that wizard section it also has the same uh, wizard piece that's there. So I'll have to take a look at my USG Flex like a 500H to see if I can see that, or see if I can find something like that on the H series. I don't have like the Oh, actually, no, I do have an ATP 500. So I'll compare the ATP 500 with the kind of the Flex H series and see how we can implement that in there. But we want to make everything as easy as possible for you, for new partners as well. And so there are some additional enhancements that we're working on to make sure that from a learning curve perspective, uh, we're going to build into the system a little bit better. My hope is, and my push, there is this push for and we're working with our engineers and R&D on a best practice security stance setting within Nebula, so that you can use it from an organization standpoint. That's like a default, and it's part of the Pro, let's say the Pro package, or if you're on the security license and you have Pro, that you can duplicate this best practice template into your new customer, and then that should already set what we think from a security standpoint, what features, functions, etc. And I'd be surprised too to see, you had mentioned from a security standpoint that wizard or that log was saying, hey, uh, you know, some security feature is not enabled, so beware, you should turn it all on. Um, Let me know if you can give me that screenshot or something like that, and show me like what is all turned on and what is turned off, and I can again ask if that is related. Those, you having one of those services turned off is related. I know some of our customers will turn off like sandboxing because they want to have better, maybe improvement of throughput or a better user experience because the type of files that are being sent and maybe blocked, that doesn't need to go to the cloud for sandboxing, etc. Uh, Sometimes those could be turned off, and that could trigger the the system to think like you should have those turned on. But you'd be surprised. I do find that there are a lot of customers who buy the entire USG Flex bundle hardware that comes with a 1 year license or multiple years of licensing for the UTM services. And for the longest time, we would have devices that would have none of the security services even registered and turned on. So the licenses are there in the account, but they've never activated. Maybe they just assumed that it would just automatically go. But because you do have to configure something, at least to enable it, you have to make the choice. But in the new system, in that new template, most likely it's going to turn on, content filtering. It's going to pick a default profile that probably typical businesses, would need or want from a content filtering service side profile, and then you can always jump into that and then make that your own, right? But it does give you then a starting point. We want to make it as easy as possible for partners who, especially new ones who've never used a Zyxel firewall before. It's pretty intuitive. I mean, there's all the things that you normally would configure and have to worry about, but maybe you don't know where exactly it is, or where or how to put the right security profile setup, or the firewall rule in a certain way, right? So there's a lot of things that might come into play that you're not an expert on, and that we could help you by just giving it to you, by just giving you the default template of how you would typically. And that's how I learn best myself, is just be able to um, uh, just go into the system and manage that. And I did talk about some of the the threats that are out there with sandboxing. And so I'll just cover a little bit what our sandboxing function does. It's able to um, uh, secure networks from unknown threats. And so I just wanted to clarify this as well. Um, you know, from a sandboxing perspective, you can be as strict as you want, but the stricter you are, the I guess the user experience might suffer a little bit more, because let's say you do enable sandboxing on all Excel files. So every time there's an Excel file that is uploaded or sent on an email or a file share and it passes the firewall and it has to scan it, it's going to send it to the cloud. And every time you've saved it, it's also going to be sent to the cloud, because it's a different, checksum on that. And so it may cause a little bit, degraded experience for those users. So you may have to enable, when these files are sent a certain way or by a certain person or something like that to improve, I guess, the user experience. But the technology is there where files, let's say a zip file, will, if it's unknown, it goes through the system. It gets sent into the cloud and gets emulated. So if it's a zip, it unzips it. If there's any executables, it tries to execute those. And then it looks to see what it's doing. So a lot of malware, when you open it up, it's going to try to call home, or it's going to try to call some server out there on the internet to try to make a connection and to be able to, or it's going to start scanning ports or things like that. So it's going to do those things, and it emulates it, and the cloud can identify that and potentially classify it as a malicious attack. And so then once we've determined that it is some sort of attack, we can create then automatically in the cloud signatures and updates that gets pushed out to the entire ecosystem. So the entire global security ecosystem um, is managed that way. So one protection or a file or malware that is somewhere here on this side of the world will then all of a sudden be inoculated, and devices that are inoculated on the other side of the world that are using that as well. So the protection then is very, I guess, quick to disseminate to all the different nodes that are there, not just for your customer or not just for you as the business or the MSP, but it can benefit the entire ecosystem, the entire world that is using this global system. And so this is managed by Zycel and those partners that are providing these types of information and signatures. And there's a lot of honeypots and things that are out there as well, just also collecting data, information, and threats that are potentially out there. So how many, I guess my question is, I hope, so as a show of hands, but not to ask a question, a show of hands, how many of your customers do use like one of these security packs, like the Elite pack or like the Gold pack, actual UTM services for malware, content filtering, things like that? Like how many of your customers? Like, say, thanks, Paul, Ken. So several of you, yeah. So you have customers who are all doing that. That's great. So that's what we want customers to be able to uh, provide to you. I mean, provide for that end customer is a full UTM service. I think gone are the days when I would say, like, the entry pack that you see on the other side. That is kind of the baseline. So in our H series, we feel like customers need to have some level of security. And so we provide, even on the hardware only SKU now, it comes with what we call entry defense. So entry defense includes some reputation and DNS like filtering, and the ability to monitor kind of those threats as well. So you can kind of get some information visibility on it. And then ultimately, we want partners to be educated to get to, or the end users to get educated to use the Gold pack. So let me get out of the screen here. So the Gold pack provides you that full UTM suite, gives you all the services and features. Now, if you even buy the entry defense level or the hardware only product, you can enable 30 days of the gold pack. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that and enable those functionalities and features so that your customers can see the benefits of those security services. So we provide all of these kinds of you know security services from our part from their different vendor partners, and it provides that holistic security threat management system that you can use to provide to your customers. So whether they're just using content filtering or you feel they need a geo IP enforcement or IP reputation, I would say our number one um, managed service uh, uh, product that customers really can then users can really take a grasp on and see is the web filtering, right? You can imagine being able to deal with situations where the customer is like, hey, I need to be able to block my employees from spending time on these kinds of websites, or you might have a sensitive base of employees and clients or whatever that you don't want them to go to specific types of websites or gambling sites or things like that. And so content filtering is probably the easiest sell to the end users because it gives them something tangible. Hey, do you want to block, all these social media sites? Do you want to block different types of applications that are using those sites? You can block those. And so that gives you, again, a category based. You don't have to, put in all of these individual sites, but we have, I think, something like 60 something categories within our web filtering that you can choose. We even have a profile pre-built as well. So for like a common business, or if you wanted, if it's more like a children's safety type filtering, then you can enable that profile and it gives you a baseline on which categories you should probably, block. You can customize those messages when it says, hey, it's blocked. But everything that passes through that, if it's built within the policy of that interface, you can enable that kind of a system to block. So what we have customers do is provide a service to the end user that says we can segment this. We can do it based on if a private a private employee network. You wanted it a little bit more open. It's a little more free. Maybe you want to have certain time limitations. So hey, they can go to Netflix before business hours and after business hours, but during business hours, those kinds of things are blocked. You can enable that within the private, but then maybe in the public guest network Wi-Fi SSID and that VLAN interface, it could be subject to a lot more strict policies, right? So it can limit what you want it to go to. And so we have some. Uh, this is also useful, I think, in a lot of applications like car dealerships. We've had a lot of partners who say, "Here, these are the sites that are allowed." So they actually block everything, and then just create a whitelist. So they create a profile that just says, "Hey, any employees they can go to different, you know, auto type trading sites or comparison sites that's been approved by the management or the owners of the car dealership. And those are the only sites that they can go to through that internet interface. So again, it protects them from, doing other things, spending time or bringing their own devices into the network that might could be a cause of issues without that information or that policy. So you can put all of these different types of policies into the network and be able to make sure that it's across the board. So even if you have customers that are in different locations, you can centralize all of that and you can sync that across. With Nebula, it allows for you to do that very easily from LAN configurations or even VPN configurations. You can synchronize multiple site deployments so they share similar configurations and policies. So you can imagine if you're managing it for a customer that has 5 different locations and the management wants to be able to go to any one of those locations and be subject to their own same security profiles. They can connect to certain VPNs or access certain resources that is in those locations physically, but be able to share that authentication whenever they're going to any of those locations, right? So it becomes very flexible for you to implement these kinds of security policies. And that's something that maybe people don't think about, that you have the power to do that when it's in the cloud. The other kind of previous way to do it, if you didn't have cloud, if you're just managing items and devices like locally, you would have to do that. You would have to provide the same policies uh, in every device. So you have to go to every individual device and make these configuration changes. And then what happens if they need to make a change? Well, they have to go back through and do it on each one of the devices again. But with Nebula and the cloud, allows for you to kind of sync that all up and provision all of that very quickly and easily there. We did make an emphasis on the different types of licenses. I do find that maybe today the customer is more interested, or maybe you have customers that are more interested on the content filtering service side of things. But then maybe in the news tomorrow, they hear about another company that's been ransomed, and so the business is now shut down, or maybe they know somebody who their computers have just gotten ransomed, and now they're kind of trying to recover from that. So any one of these services that you see could potentially be an opportunity or a foot in the door. Again, when you do that 30-day trial, maybe again by show of hands, how many of you have enabled the 30-day trial? You've sold a hardware device into the customer. They're not sure if they want to go full security or not, and you installed a hardware only, and you enabled the 30-day trial. If you haven't done that before, I would encourage you to do it because it's basically a free way for you to showcase the platforms and the services that are available, and then allow for them to pick and choose. Right, they can choose, um, maybe one of these pieces comes up. Thank you, Ken. One of these pieces are one of these services is something that catches their mind, or they realize I do need these kinds of functionalities like the web filtering or anti-malware. I think that's the second one. The first most popular is the content filtering service. The second one is the antivirus and anti-malware, because then we're talking about ransomware protection and malware protection. Everybody knows about that. I would say too, I think in this growing system of more cloud-based endpoint security, where the devices like your laptops are just being secured by an endpoint cloud software that pushes everything into the cloud, and then all of the security services are kind of handled within the cloud. Um, that's great, but I think the local network is still vulnerable. So if you have printers, servers, computers themselves still that are being attacked, you know, uh, if your laptop is not up to date and there is a security vulnerability and it's not being shielded, by things, or you have potential security holes where you have somebody's turned on remote desktop and that's being allowed out to the internet, and you have uh, ports that are open potentially. That's something the firewall will still need to do. You may not need to do maybe all of the content filtering services, but I still think you do need some sort of anti intrusion detection, application tech control that can be handled at the gateway level as well, right? To protect resources and devices that are still there. So there's still some benefit in providing these kinds of security services to these users. So this is just some of them, and then you have your sandboxing, your reputation filter, also secure Wi-Fi. So secure Wi-Fi allows for you to drop in an AP to a remote location, whether it be a home or a remote office, and using that existing internet connection, it's going to tunnel back through the internet back to a USG firewall that builds a encrypted tunnel. And the experience for the user is that now they can access the same SSIDs that you want them to have as if they were sitting in the office. So you can extend that office through the internet so that when you do have that hybrid workforce, they can move from the office to pick up their setup, their laptop, their Wi-Fi phones, whatever it is, bring it to their home office or a remote office, and be able to connect to that same kind of experience without having to then worry about, oh, I need to turn on this VPN tunnel. I need to install and configure those VPN tunnels. I need to then, have a VPN tunnel or VPN installed on my phone or my laptop and my tablets. just to make that connection back to the office, right, to do remote. That's where that secure Wi-Fi can be very effective and help you delivering those kinds of services too. So there's just a chart on different types of security licenses. And, again, a bundled, when you buy the hardware only, it does provide you some security functionality. But the license gives you just, again, so much more when you provide that. When you look at, even broken down kind of on a monthly basis, it's something that you can charge on a monthly basis and make really good margin on by providing that kind of services to your customer. Because it's not only the licenses themselves that you're going to make money, but then the managed service that you're providing um, in that aspect to make sure that these features are enabled, make sure that they are done as a best practice, those kinds of things. So again, I know there's a few more that have jumped on to the webinar. Um, just again, a reminder, if you do have any questions, you can either send me a question in the Q&A section, or if you'd like to ask that live, I will enable your mic, and that seemed to work pretty well with Paul to ask those questions. So if you have any kind of thoughts, comments, issues you've been dealing with, maybe questions you want to ask me related to security, raise your hand and I will unmute you so you can ask those questions. So just kind of carrying on, there are other things that within the security perspective that I want to tell or let you guys know, or let our partners know, is our commitment to security. So earlier I mentioned all the CV, whereas the CVE, we provide, we're CNA, that means we provide CVEs when those are reported to us. We work through the system to make those publicly available on any fixes, firmwares, notifications. So as a reminder too, we do have that security notification email system that when these kinds of things pop up, you get notified. So I would recommend for you to join that that mailing list so that we can notify you. I think if you are part of our like if you already subscribed to kind of our Nebula system and enabled the security functionalities, then you will also get notifications. But make sure that you do check your spam box, or make sure that those emails are not going to spam, so that when the time comes to notify you, you'll get those immediately without it getting lost in the system. So we are committed from a hardware perspective for basically five years. Okay, so no matter what this is saying here, when we announce something that's going to be end of sale, which on some of our products, like our USG Flex series, some of the models are at end of sale. But we will do kind of a more formal announcement that the whole system or the whole kind of device series is going end of sale. So these are the USG Flex series, not the H series, just the kind of the first generation next gen, I guess the first generation next gen product of the USG Flexes. Those are going to be end of sale soon. So that means that we will support the hardware, not only just the 5 years from a feature perspective, we will enhance any critical issues for 5 years, for the next 5 years, basically. If I announced it today, then 5 years from now is going to be the last day of vulnerability support, meaning that you can then still sell the product today and enjoy up to 5 years at least of services, including any kind of vulnerability issues and things like that. So we will still provide new feature functions for 2 more years. Let me go back real quick. We will still provide, the end of development happens 2 years from now, meaning that any features and functions enhancements and things will stop that 2 years from now. But then we will then still continue to provide any kind of vulnerability support or fixes. So anything that impacts the UTM functionality or the security systems of the device will be addressed. So that's why the licenses will also then continue from the end of sale for 5 years. So it will continue to work until that end of hardware support, end of life, is 5 years from that point of the end of sales. So I know that might sound confusing, but just in essence, know that even if we announced end of marketing today, that product will still work for at least 5 more years in terms of hardware and the licenses. We wanted to make sure most of our customers in most products honestly have 3 to 5 year life cycles, and so most of the contracts that we see from the businesses and from partners, MSPs, tend to be 3 to 5 years. So that will fit nicely so that when your commitment to your customers is up for renewal or up for you know to kind of an upgrade cycle, then the products will still at least work until then, until you're ready to upgrade. There are a lot of different applications. I know some of you have been using this in many different spots. I would say maybe in the chat, if you want to answer this question, um, I would just want to kind of get a gauge of all the people who are here. What size customer do you typically deal with? Are they just a small office like this? You have a couple of teleworkers. You might just need a small firewall, or maybe you can say customers that are 10 to 20 users is the kind of the different tiers, or how many users and size do you typically deal with? Um, of course, we have customers that range from this person is only like a small office, like a doctor's office, and there's only like 3 people there. And then there's other MSP customers that we have that say that they do, you know, they don't do anything less than like a 250 node customer. So there's a different wide range here. So I'm just curious on those who are on this webinar right now, what is your typical target customer, or maybe you don't have a target customer. You just say, uh, whoever I can get, is my size customer. So whether they're small or big, but I think that also comes into play where you have the size maybe dictates what your future business might be too. Because if you're only focused, if you can only have the capacity to focus on just the smaller type customers, then you won't be able to have the capacity to manage somebody who's, a hundred user type, or maybe 500 user, or they have 15, 20 locations that you need to deal with. Uh, we do find a lot of partners who kind of fit in those different types of molds, and we do have a large customer base as well that has maybe they only manage a certain number of customers, and that's their business. They may only have um, 15 or 50 end users that are their customers, and they provide break fix services, or they'll provide server maintenance, or computer laptop deployment configurations, network configurations, or whatever they may need. But then that's it, and then they only go through, I guess, full network refreshes every 3 to 5 years, or maybe when the customer needs, or when there's maybe a move of location and they need to do a new network build out, then they take opportunity to do that. Security is like a big piece of that, because then how do you make sure that you have the right product, so that maybe today they're a small office, but then they have to scale to larger offices, or maybe now they have, or one of your customers is more of a branch office. You kind of have to pick which devices can facilitate and assist in those situations. Or if you have even larger, branch offices where there's a main office and there's a bunch of little branch offices, how do you manage and build those VPN tunnels, which products to choose? And that's really what our offering allows for you to do with the H series, so that you can secure different branch offices for their different applications that are out there. So it can fit and scale. You can have devices that only need kind of a small office. So we do have a USG 50H that has been made available. This provides you kind of the smallest box that can do full enhanced UTM functionalities. In the previous platform, the USG Flex 50s, they could only do like the content filtering and some like reputation type scanning. But the 50H now brings you into this new new side of it where it now can do more robust UTM. So it's able to do and deliver up to 2 gigs of SPI, and I believe it's around 350 full UTM throughput on the 50. So it makes it again more affordable for you to provide kind of that entry level, maybe for that small office scenario. But then you can move and scale all the way up to like our flagship USG Flex 700H, which has multi-gig ports, has 15 gigs of SPI firewall, 4 gigs of UTM throughput functionality and scanning. You get then integrated PoE switches as well as 10 gig uplinks. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is on the 50, there are also a 50 HP version that comes with an integrated PoE port. So then you can piggytail off a access point or a phone or maybe an IP camera, things like that. And then there's also something we call cloud management and cloud smart sync. So it's the ability to manage now simultaneously if you want to do on-prem mode and on cloud, it's going to be synced together. So the smart sync will allow for you to make configurations in the cloud, which then is the same configuration as if you went to the interface itself direct on the device and added a feature or added a configuration or changed something, then it syncs itself to the cloud again. So it's a universal sync there. So there will be some, I would say, some more advanced features that you can only configure within the prem, so on the device itself. But rest assured that the configuration, the full configuration, is still synced into the cloud. The cloud just doesn't have the, I guess, the interface GUI at this point yet for those advanced features to be able to like configure it in the cloud. But it's being synced anyway, so you're not going to lose anything. You don't have to choose a path like the previous generation, whether you want to do it on-prem or on cloud. You could just choose today, I'm going to manage it in the cloud because it's more convenient for me. I'm doing some more advanced things, so then I need to get to the device. So you could do it on the device, and it's still that same configuration. So again, that sync will allow for you to choose and make your choice on how you want to manage it. So that was released in the April. We are making a July release as well for the Nebula and the firmware of the H series that allows for you to do the auto provisioning. So right now, in order to onboard the device, you have to go to the device itself. Give me a second. You have to go to the device to kind of initiate the process to say, I want to manage this also in the cloud, so that it knows that you do want it in Nebula, because you could still make a choice, right? The customers, if you don't want the cloud sync functionality, you can choose to not put it in Nebula. So that's the flexibility. You could still use it in purely standalone mode, on-prem without any cloud sync. But then if you do want to have that Nebula cloud sync, then you go to the device and say, I would also like to manage it in the cloud. So that's how you're onboarding it right now. You go to the device, onboard it to the cloud, and now it's synchronized. So now you can choose whichever way you want to configure it. In the July release, we're going to allow for you to do it preemptively and say, hey, if I'm going to add this device to my cloud Nebula organization, that it's going to perform that sync for you without you having to go to the device. So then that will allow for you to now pre-configure in the cloud to synchronize to the on-prem device during that initial process. So it'll be like what you're doing right now with the Flex H. I guess somebody also said that they most of their customers are less than 30 users. So that's a good. I guess whoever wrote that, the anonymous, for the 30 users, which device do you use or gravitate to provide for those customers with 30 users? Is it, a Flex 200, a 100? Sometimes what I find is customers will use a device just because the cost, but it might or be related to the throughput. So from a throughput perspective, the devices all scale in kind of a different way. Let me get out of the picture here. So it ranges all the way from, UTM of 600 megabits per second all the way up to 4 gigs. So I was wrong there. I said 350, but that's what I was trying to say from a WAN perspective. Those customers with a 300 to 350 megabits per second is probably good for that. So what you want to do is be able to look at the device's UTM throughput. And I would say take 50% of this number or 60% of this number. And that's where you would, that's the WAN speed, the internet connection of your customer in order to maximize kind of the throughput. Because this is the biggest theoretical test number. That's the industry standard on looking at what is its max throughput. So 4 gigs, this is going to be great for like a 2.5 gig, a multi-gig internet connection. Or if you have two 1 gig connections, or maybe even up to 3, you could push that to 3 different internet connections that need to do full UTM. Then you can use the 700. So that's that. I guess Anonymous said they use for 30 users either a 200H or a 500H. Okay, so that's probably great for that kind of application. We do. I would err on the higher side or the higher device to give you more buffer room for throughput and such, if you can afford that. But again, it's all about future proofing or picking the right model to satisfy your customers' needs. Well, thank you for that answer there. So we are, reaching to the end of the present or the time, and I think I don't know, time kind of flew really quick, but I wanted to make sure if you're not a Zicel partner, that you do take advantage of that. We want you to be gold partners. So we set a bar that is, fairly achievable for most customers, even on a single project. So if you have one project, a lot of them are going to be over 12K. And so you'll be able to hit our gold tier. Many of our MSPs customers actually, even just on the renewal services every year, can satisfy and sit at that gold tier just on the UTM renewals. But we work as a channel partner here through DNH, Ingram, TD Synnex, Wave, Target, and also now Blue Star. If you want to connect with us, me, or Zicel, you can go to our LinkedIn page, Zicel-US-channel, or you can go to our YouTube page, Zicel America channel, or you can also search on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me. Just search for Zicel Try, and you'll be able to find my picture and be able to send me a request to connect, or you can follow me on that as well. So if you do have any extra questions, we do have just a couple more minutes if you want to ask those questions. If not, you can always email me. My email is, let me get out of the picture here, try@zicel.com. So it's tri@zicel.com. So if anything stirs a thought, some of the things that we talked about today related to security might be interesting to you, please send me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can, or I will find somebody who can answer those questions that you might have. If you do have some other questions, thoughts, comments, and you want to ask me so that I can either send it to our engineers, etc., that would be great. Paul asks, you were talking about how firmware support continues to be available for 5 years after EOL. Suppose products hardware dies, that is in EOL, but still less than 5 years old. So yeah. So our hardware warranty is basically 5 years after end of life. So the end of life is going to be 5 years from now. So we will still replace the hardware, 5 years after that, based on our end of life policy. But from a security perspective, if you are using security services, if we no longer support the security licenses at that point, so even if the hardware dies after that 5 years, it might not be useful for you unless you were just using it as a pure SPI firewall. So that functionality will still work. But if all the UTM type functionalities, the content filtering and such, will then no longer be supported. So whatever signatures were locked into it at that point in time, that's it. It's not gonna be updated and supported after that end of life time period. So the firmware and the licenses, the vulnerability, the services, the UTM will be 5 years after end of sale or end of marketing that we will announce. So then you get 5 more years of services and 2 years of new features still, but then 5 years of vulnerability support and all of the security related services, anything that affects the security functionality of the device will be addressed and be fixed, and so that it can still, and so you can still enjoy the benefits of the protection for those 5 years. And then after that, if the hardware fails, we still will provide hardware replacement if that's the case. So hopefully that answers your question. So we've hit our time. It's now 12 o'clock. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul, for your comments and for your question as well. So hopefully this maybe, I'd like this kind of format. It just is a little bit more open-ended. I can just jump between different topics and thoughts. So maybe at some point I will also have our systems engineer come on, and we have that conversation about some of these topics, and maybe topics that you can ask to the engineer as well. Again, related to any kind of networking, depending on the topic that we're hosting. This time was security, but who knows what we might be doing in the near future. But I think security is an important aspect of it. And so I want our partners to understand that and get benefit from utilizing our products and providing these kinds of security services to your customers. So thank you again for your time. I hope you enjoyed this format. If you have any comments and questions and thoughts about it, again, send me an email, and I'd love to hear maybe different topics that you might want to hear about. Let me know your ideas, and we'd love to have that kind of discussion. So until next time, thank you for joining me and joining us for this session of Tech Talk. We'll see you again in the near future. Goodbye.